WSAV is your local election headquarters, and there's a major development in the nationwide redistricting battle taking place in our area. South Carolina's State Senate voted down a plan for midterm redistricting earlier today. Calls for redistricting began after a recent Supreme Court ruling about unconstitutional racial gerrymandering. Republicans in South Carolina sought to eliminate the state's sole congressional district that's represented by a Democrat. The redistricting measure passed through the state house but was shot down in the Senate by a 29-17 vote. Just too shy of the necessary 2/3 majority. 5 Republicans voted with all Democrats to shut down the push, including State Senator Tom Davis from the Low Country. During a marathon State Senate hearing, Republican State Senator Shane Massey spoke in favor of keeping the current maps, saying the new maps were not needed as South Carolina is already gerrymandered.
I said earlier that if the U.S. House goes to a Democratic majority, it won't be because of South Carolina. That's because we are already heavily gerrymandered. We are the most gerrymandered Republican state in the country already.
The district that would have been most impacted was District 6, which has long been represented by Democrat Jim Clyburn. Clyburn spoke to the press in D.C. today about the ruling, and he said, quote, "I think Senator Shane Massey summed up the issue very well, and I associate myself with his comments. There is a comprehensive approach on part of this administration to turn the clock back to what I call Jim Crow 2.0. That's what this is." Meanwhile, State Attorney General Alan Wilson, who is seeking the governor's seat, said President Trump and the Supreme Court made it clear that states like ours have the opportunity to and the authority to redraw congressional districts in a constitutional way. Governor McMaster must call for a special session. The time to act is now. Back in Georgia, one gubernatorial candidate making the rounds across the state today as early voting continues. Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger made a stop in Savannah today as part of his 6-city Standing for Georgia tour. Raffensperger met with voters to discuss his platform, including cutting property taxes and creating more jobs across the state. He also highlighted wages in the state, saying many jobs are already paying well, so raising the minimum wage would be unnecessary.
Great paying jobs. It's pure and simple. That's my focus.
Would that include raising minimum wage?
Don't need to, because we have great paying jobs. You go up and down the I-16 corridor, they're starting people at $25, $30 an hour.
Raffensperger is part of a crowded field seeking the Republican nomination for governor, including names like Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones and businessman Rick Jackson. Early voting in Georgia ends this Friday. Election day is 1 week from today, which is May 19th. Well, Hutchinson Island in Savannah is rapidly growing, and city leaders are looking to help keep residents safe as more businesses and homes come in. The Savannah Police and Fire Departments are now looking to build a joint building that's going to be on the island. The building will help provide extra police and fire services to Hutchinson Island, and currently police and fire either use the Talmadge Bridge or a boat on the Savannah River to get to the island during an emergency. Savannah Fire Chief William Handy says Hutchinson Island residents should be confident that even though the building isn't there yet, they will still get police and fire services.
They'll be provided every single day, 365. So I don't want residents to think that there's a delay in their services being provided to them. We do understand there are things that happen with the bridge. We do understand inclement weather. We prepare for those.
The project is still in the early stages. Savannah city officials told WSAV that they don't yet have the property or the budget. Chief Handy says the goal is to have the project complete in the next 3 to 5 years. The Bulloch County Board of Commissioners opening up council chambers this evening and allowing residents to address them in a non-formal setting. WSAV's Evan Smoke was in the room and has more details.
Tuesday evening, residents got a chance to see their commissioners at eye level. Elected officials and Bulloch County department heads gathered around tables and spoke to residents about their concerns and questions. One of those residents wanted answers about her road.
It turns out that when the development was made, all of the roads were deeded over as each road was completed with construction until they got to ours. They did the construction, the company went out of business, the road never got deeded over.
The county tells WSAV that the county taking over a road requires a full process, something they are now looking into. Bulloch County Chairman David Bennett tells WSAV the biggest concern he heard Tuesday related to upcoming budget discussions, something he wanted to clear the air on.
There were some statements that were put out that, we were talking about a 2.3 mil budget increase. That wasn't the case. Really what we were doing was just trying to show that with all the asks that we had in the budget, if we were to say yes to every one of them, it would cost us a 2.3 mil increase in our budget. We have no intention of doing that.
Bennett added that town hall events allows him to connect more with citizens.
I'm always willing to talk to folks on the phone or email, but I really value face-to-face conversations, and I try to have as many of those as I can going through the week. But in a population of 86,000 and some change people in Bulloch County, over a county that's 689 square miles, it can be a challenge to do that sometimes.
Bennett says the county plans to hold their next town hall sometime this fall. Reporting in Statesboro, Evan Smoke, WSAV News 3, on your side.
Statesboro City Council began its discussion on the city's fiscal year 2026-2027 budget today. The first draft of the budget is headlined by a potential millage rate increase. A homeowner whose house is valued at $250,000 could see a $375 increase to their annual property tax bill. The increase is not expected to be long-term, but rather a one-year bump, as the city says the higher taxes will be used to offset next fiscal year thanks to incoming revenue from the floating local option sales tax, also known as FLOSS, that was passed in November of 2025. Now, this budget is just a draft, and a public hearing is scheduled to be held on June 2nd before budget adoption is scheduled for June the 16th. Tybee Island is reopening 2 beach access boardwalks again as summer is quickly approaching. Leaders say they closed because of major erosion problems at the end of last season. WSAV's Jillian Coles has those details.
It was at 19th Street, it was 9 feet. And at 2nd Street, it was more like 5 to 6 feet.
Tybee Island Mayor Brian West says beach access points on 19th Street and 2nd Street were closed because during high tide, water was coming up to the dunes and edge of the boardwalk. He says while the boardwalks were closed, people walked through the dunes, creating an even bigger problem.
They hop the fence and they walk through the dunes, which is a problem because it destroys the vegetation, which is so important to keep the dune intact.
University of Georgia Skidaway Island Institute measures the length of the beach every quarter. And since the last renourishment in 2020, West says Tybee Island has eroded about 54% across the island.
It's really critical in the areas like the South End where we have major parking lots, major businesses, hotels, condos. I mean, most of the valuable property is in that area. If we have the ocean in those parking lots and underneath those businesses, this can be a huge problem.
He says over the winter, natural sand movement in the wind has helped rebuild the dunes at 19th and 2nd Street.
We were able to reopen those boardwalks with a little bit of shifting, sand shifting, but not much effort.
Mayor West says those boardwalks reopening is essential to keeping the dunes intact and stresses to visitors and residents to stay out of them.
We're not just saying that just to protect the dunes, we're saying that because it is a real danger. Use the boardwalks and pick up the trash. It's just, the trash is just like, help us protect our land.
Well, Savannah Mayor Van Johnson is asking tourism leaders to sit down and talk about growing concerns over how tourism is impacting life downtown. Mayor Johnson says he's written to the City Tourism Advisory Committee asking them to start working through what he calls a better balance between a growing tourism industry and quality of life in downtown neighborhoods. Tourism in Savannah is still growing, but some people who live downtown say they're feeling more of the effects, things such as noise, crowds, and activity late at night. Michael Owens with the Tourism Leadership Council says while many of the concerns about noise or crowds come from personal preferences about living downtown, those preferences can become complicated when they start to overlap public rights and what people are allowed to do in a shared space.
Some of these things that we're talking about now are really difficult to deal with. There's a lot of laws involved in it. There's a lot of protections that people have. When you want to talk about somebody playing a guitar in Whitfield Square, well, that's First Amendment protected activity, right? And whether someone likes it or not, not really a reason that we could regulate against somebody exercising their First Amendment in the case.
Owen says the industry is open to addressing real concerns, but he also says officials are still trying to clearly define exactly what the main issue is, and that reaching an agreement between all sides is going to take some time before anything heads to council. In some news around Georgia tonight, Governor Brian Kemp has signed the $38.5 billion budget into law. The budget includes tax relief, school literacy funding, and major infrastructure investments. WSAV's Archie Shashadri reports.
Georgia Governor Brian Kemp finalizing his final budget in office on Tuesday under the Gold Dome, a budget of nearly $40 billion, highlighting his priorities for the state of Georgia, including education, health care, transportation and infrastructure, as well as mental health.
As I always say, our job is to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollars, because that's the people's money, not the government's. And that's why we have saved or returned over $12 billion to the taxpayers. And while we'll save them even more through the tax cuts that I was honored to sign yesterday. Like my earlier budgets, this document prioritizes education, behavioral health, community health, public safety, our agriculture and forestry industries, and much, much more.
A big part of the budget includes education, with $70 million being allocated to hire literacy coaches across the state, to hire a literacy coach at every public elementary school to improve reading rates for K through 3rd. $12 million also being allocated to reduce class sizes for pre-K.
Under this administration, we have put an unprecedented funding towards classrooms, toward mental health services, into local and state infrastructure projects, public and community health initiatives, and more. All of these investments remain intact in this legislation.
Mental health and healthcare also being a top priority for the governor, with $5 million being allocated for the 988 crisis hotline, as well as having mobile crisis response teams, and $400 million being allocated to build a new mental health facility in the state of Georgia to have more bed facilities for those who may need it. Reporting at the Georgia State Capitol, Archit Tashadri, Atlanta Bureau Chief.